Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much for coming. This is so awesome to see so many people in this room. This is the last time I've ever sponsored EdTech. We're only going to run these events ourselves now. So there'll definitely be more in the future. And I would appreciate feedback. I think all of the speakers would appreciate feedback at the end of the session, at the end of the day, just to sort of see, was the program worth it? Did you learn anything? And potentially, what other topics are out there that we potentially can cover for you guys in the future? Now, what I want to talk to you today about is topic of media attribution. And media attribution really, this is media attribution. Media attribution is giving credit where credit is due. Darren talked to you about the process that you have to create, the systems that you have to set up to work well with the various different parties that are involved. And really what media attribution is about is to measure that, and is to find out if any of the media strategies, any of the media mix, if you make any changes, whether they actually have an impact. And that obviously allows you to see how well you're doing, but another important thing is also it allows you to test. It actually allows you to try a few different things and then compare what actually works and what doesn't. So media attribution is about giving credit where credit is due. So you can measure performance and you can test different things and compare them. Now, the outcome should really be something like this: the ideal media dashboard. I get a nice Romy figure for every single channel, at a top level and further down at an individual channel level. And really, Romy is a little bit different to ROI, which we all love to use all the time. And actually, Dan, I disagree. I think the most beaten to death word in marketing is not strategy, it's actually ROI. Now, ROI is actually quite wrong to use as a term, because ROI is based on total revenue versus total costs. And you can't take credit for every single sale that was made. Fact is, if you turn off all the marketing or all the media that you spend right now, your company's still going to sell, because you have a brand equity. There's something there, something intangible that's not related to the media that you spend every month. And so what we need to measure is the incremental. If we put another $7 into offline, how much more are we going to get incremental back from that investment? The incremental increase, and that's Romy, the return on marketing investment. And so we can't tell that. We can't tell the incremental if we don't have a baseline. So one of the very important things to try to establish, and that's not that so straightforward, is to try to establish a baseline so you can measure the incremental gain, and that's when we're going to calculate our Romy from. So the ThinkMind guys are actually going to give you a bit of an idea of how potentially their tool can help you to really calculate the baseline, because it's not that easy. Now, to get to this dashboard, which would be nice because it gives us a very nice actionable result and a nice actionable figures that we can say, well, take money out of this and put it into that, and that's really all we want to do, right? Now, to get to this, we really need to look at what's happening in reality, and so you don't have to understand this whole thing, but this took me about a day to figure out how to really represent what's going on in reality. And you can sort of see, bottom left-hand corner, there's a bit of a CRM cycle. So you're part of a CRM program, you get some communication, you might go to a landing page, and then you might go directly to buy, or you walk into the store. Maybe you even share that stuff on Twitter and Facebook, the orange box, okay? Then there's a whole organic thing going on at the top. So organic search, everybody's got YouTube channels and blogs now, so people might find your product through that, and then they end up buying, or maybe walk into the store a few days later. And then this whole area of paid media happening as well. And people see your TV ad, they might just search and then come to your site and then buy, or they might do nothing at all online. They might just directly walk into the store, pick up the phone. Or different channels might influence each other. Now, it's a very complex interaction that makes people change their behavior. There's repeat exposure, combination of channels, combinations of placement that make people change behavior over time. And media attribution is about measuring that, measuring the combination of channels, the combination of placements that lead to a action, a conversion, a sale. Okay? Now, everybody in the room familiar with the last click model? The last click gets all the credit. Now, it's absolutely impossible to do that with the last click model. How can you, if reality looks like this, give all the credit for a sale to the very last campaign touch point? It's not going to give you a very good view of reality. Okay, so this is not very fair, because the initiating two channels don't get any credit. They look like they have nothing to do with this sale. The last click gets all the credit. Some people use the first click gets all the credit, but even that is not very fair, because the initiating channel gets all the credit, but the other two at the end that also were necessary to push people across the line don't get any credit either. Now what we want is really something like this. Every single channel that was evolved gets at release the same credit, or gets something like a partial credit. Okay? Probably giving every single channel the exact same credit, $100 for everything, is not really that nice either. So you probably want to come up with some form of custom model that attributes credit. Giving credit where credit is due, that's what media attribution is. Splitting up that $100 and figuring out how to distribute that across the different channels that are involved. Here we would have split it up in an even fashion, but you can apply a little bit more science, and that's what I want to talk to you today about as well. Now, just a little bit more data from a client that we worked with a very long time ago, so I hope they don't mind me showing this, but this is a really interesting piece to hammer home how terrible it can actually be if you either use first or last click measurement. So stay with me a little bit here. Don't worry about all the channels that are on the left-hand side. They're too small to read anyway. I just want you to focus on the search and the email and shopping engines, okay? That the bars up below and above and below that. Now, if you use the first click model, first touch point gets all the credit. The red bit is how you would have reported on sales by channel. If you give all the credit to first touch point, the red bit is how these guys would have reported on total sales by channel. So search would have gotten most of the credit, and emails and shopping engines not so much. All right? If you use the last click model, the last click gets all the credit. The gray area is how you would have reported on sales by channel. Last click, gray area. So emails and shopping engines get all the credit, which makes sense because you kind of have to go to the website first to sign up for the email to get it in the first place, yeah? To then be able to. So it happens further down in the funnel. Same with shopping engines. You've already made the decision of what you want to buy. It's just you're trying to find the best deal. Yeah? So either way, if you use one of the two models, the problem here is not you do this once. The problem here is that you have been doing this for years and years and years. So you've been heaping one bad budget decision onto the next. There's very little science or reality involved in these things anymore. It's a bit like this. Yeah? So how much do we spend? This is what we did last year. A month. Oh, it wasn't so bad. Let's just continue doing that, you know? And it's really, that's... Maybe it's not the best way. Maybe this is not how you're going to create a competitive advantage over your competitors. This is certainly not how you grow your market share. It's status quo. Yeah? And maybe it's actually really, really inefficient as well. Maybe you're actually losing a lot of money. Okay? Well, this is what we're trying to fix. But it's not just about first or last click. Yeah? So that obviously doesn't really work. Another important thing to understand with media attribution is also that sometimes it's just the exposure to something. I can't just measure clicks. I need to measure the exposure to advertising. Yeah? So take display advertising. It's a very complex slide, but I think it's very interesting to understand that one. A bit of research done by Comscore, again in the US, not in Australia, very sorry, but I think that applies to us as well. And really what it shows is that there's a small minority of people that click on the majority of ads, display ads, okay? So there's a very small minority of people that click on the majority of ads, so a small amount of people that cause all the clicks, and they totally skew the whole result, okay? Most people never ever click on a display ad at all. And look, show of hands, who's still looking at click-through rate for display ads in this room? Any marketers? Come on, be brave. It is at least one. Thanks for admitting. Nobody else? You got smart. Why are you even here? You know everything about it. 1, 2, 3. All right, slowly people starting to admit, okay. It's a total minority. It's what we call the clickers. In Australia, I think it's between 8 to 10%. Yeah, cause 80% of the clicks. You cannot use click-through rate on a display ad as a measure, as a success measure. It's ridiculous, okay? So we need to find another measure. We need to measure pure exposure rather than clicks. Yeah? First, last click doesn't work. We also need to measure exposure. So what we want to track is we want to track the full purchase path, the full path to purchase, every single touch point leading up to a sale. And then we classify these into introducing channels, people that start the channels that start the conversation, influencers in the middle, yeah, and there can be many, and closers at the end. That's the old last click. Yeah. The channels that close the deal, that get people across the line, now they buy, ready to hand over the cash. Yeah? And funnily enough, the influencers in the middle, research has shown from one of our partners, Clear Sailing, is 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 touch points are usually influencers in the middle. And those are the ones that are completely missed in either model, first or last click. Okay? But they're really, really important. And display tends to be in that. Yeah? So we want to track every single response, every single click leading up to an online sale. Yeah? That's the easiest thing to do. That's the very first step in purchase path tracking, and that's very simple to implement. The next step is we want to add views, banner views into this, mere expressions, mere exposure to an ad, and we probably also want to track offline sales that are caused by online advertising. So think back to the black slide in the beginning when we talk about media attribution is about giving credit where credit is due. Yeah? Now, if I want to split up my credit to different channels, then I'll probably want to have the correct amount of credit that I need to distribute, yeah? And if you're not taking the offline sales into consideration that your online advertising is driving, then you're basically lacking, I don't know, anything between 30 to 100% of sales, maybe, yeah? Maybe you don't even sell online, okay? So there's a lot of people here in the room that probably sell across a variety of channels. And yes, people research online and they buy offline. Yeah? So if you don't find at least a way or an estimation of tying offline sales back to potentially the online activity that caused them, you're missing out on a huge amount of credit that you simply can't distribute or attribute. Okay? And then finally, at the end, we also want to get offline into the mix, because there's plenty of offline advertising that drives people to do then continue their research online. Yeah? And ideally, in the end, we don't just want to record on one-off sales, we want to record on the lifetime value of a customer. Yeah? Especially people who have a lot of repeat sales, repeat purchases. Yeah? You can't just give your media agency credit for the one-off sale if people like continue to buy. Yeah? Every week they pay for a subscription, for example. Okay? So, and looking at those 3 layers, that's also like the kind of difficulty layers of doing this properly. You might start with the first. You just measure every single click leading up to an online sale. Then you try to also measure display impressions and try to find a way to measure offline sales. And then the last step might be lifetime profit and getting TV in there. It's a progression. Media attribution is a long-term investment for the company. You need to change processes, technology, you need to change attitude. There's a cultural shift as well. You need to change your relationships. Some agencies might not want to work with that. Others welcome it. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that need to happen to make this come together. Today I want to just give you a couple of ideas how you can actually mechanically maybe make that happen. Yeah? So how can we potentially track offline sales back to online? How can we potentially track offline media and how it influences online? Yeah. And just, I guess, rather than just talking about strategy, give you a few ideas of how you can potentially start asking a bit more pointed questions and understand these mechanics a little bit yourself. Yeah? Now, one of the key points we need to make here is that purchase paths are different for different scenarios. Okay? I think the most obvious one would be product A versus B. If your product's been in market for 10 years, then take a wild guess. If your product's been in market for 10 years, where is the focus in the funnel for you? Come on, anybody? No? At the front? Sorry? It's wrong. If your product's... Yeah, exactly. Thanks for trying. At least he tried. Do you want to try again? Fantastic. Okay. If the product's been in market for 10 years, then it is established. The awareness is there. There's no need to introduce the product. It's about closing your deal. It's direct response, right? If it's a new product, the focus is probably more on the front of the channel. So maybe depending on product, you want to have a different attribution scheme. Same with customers. If it's an existing customer, they know about your brand. It's not about creating awareness. It's not the front of the funnel. It's the end of the funnel. Yeah. Same with different campaign types, direct response campaign versus branding campaign. So you might want to apply different models for different scenarios in a lot of different ways, okay? And you need the ability to change that, okay? And this is probably your first clue of why this whole out-of-the-box media attribution thing is probably not such a good idea, okay? Yes, people give you out-of-the-box media attribution models to get you started pretty quickly, but you're going to very quickly find the limits of these things. Because every company is different market environments, different products, and you need to customize it to yourself. It's going to be a long-term investment, 2 to 3 years to get this off the ground anyway, properly. Yeah? You don't want to start over again halfway through because you started off the wrong way. Now here's an example of purchase path data. Yeah? And you can nicely see 2 channels that often do not get enough credit. Okay? Display on the left-hand side. As people don't click on it, they cannot become the closer. They cannot become ever the last click. People don't click on that stuff. They don't click on banners. So they're a huge influencer. Yeah? If you only look at the bottom line, yeah, that's how you would have reported in this campaign on success by channel. You would give no credit to display, but in fact it's been a huge influencing channel. Very important channel. Almost as effective as search. Yeah? Or email. Yeah? Not everybody clicks on emails. It's actually pretty painfully obvious. That's because you have an open rate and your click-through rate is lower than the open rate. People open the email and they see it, but they don't click on it. But open an email is still an exposure to advertising. You still have seen something. You've seen a message. It's similar to display advertising. You want to measure that. You want to see how many people see your email. Because guess what? They might print it out. They do all sorts of weird things with your emails. Their consumers are very, very strange. You know, they don't behave as you want them to behave, or you might predict they behave. They're weird. Yeah? I print off emails and then take them into store. You know? So keep that in mind, right? It's not just, maybe I should have not admitted that. Now, I hope that makes the point. You need to measure exposure, and it's not just limited to display advertising. It could also be email opens. Okay. Now, I know this is a bit scary. This is raw data, yeah. But it's very important for you to understand, as marketers, if you do media attribution, where the data comes from. Because if this is wrong, or the data is lacking or missing or not having the right granularity, then the outcome is probably going to be rubbish. And you need to be able to double check that. You need to at least have a few pointers to find out, am I getting the right data? Am I collecting the right stuff? What are the mechanics? You know, you need to be able to double check that. You can't trust anybody. Yeah? Now, if you look at this example here, and I might have to turn around a little bit. In this example here, I'll just explain a little bit. We have up here, it's a user ID, so it's a cookie level. Like we get this purchase path, this data for every single individual. Every single individual, it's on a cookie level, okay? So we have tons of data, thousands and thousands of paths. Then we have a date stamp, and we have a timestamp. What day did this happen? What exact time? Then we get granularity about the placement. So this was a red ad on Yahoo in a certain site section. Then there's another red ad, and that was in the Sydney Morning Herald finance section. Yeah? Don't worry about the dollar figures for now. There's a Google search, a branded search term. There's a website visit. Yeah? So in this example here, there's 2 display exposures. There's no click, followed 5 minutes later by on organic search. Yeah? So people don't click on ads. They then do a branded organic search. So they might remember, oh, I saw this ad from this brand. And 5 minutes later, they go, OK, I'm going to check this out now. And the only thing they remember is your brand name. And that's what they type into Google. And that's when you come to your site. And that's why in your statistics nowadays, you have so much credit attributed to branded search. Because branded search is driven by other channels. And display is a big part of that. Okay? So in a standard model, that website visit here looks like it actually came from organic branded search. But in truth, it was actually initiated way before that. And the way I can tell that is of the timestamp. It all happened very closely. Within 10 minutes, all these things happen. So I can make a correlation and say it's close in time. I can make an educated guess and say because this all happened very closely in time, the organic search, the website visit actually probably originated because of the 2 banners. The 2 red ones, by the way. We can go all the way down to creative level in these things, okay? Yeah? But without that information, that purchase path, you would not know about that. And you would actually say, those red banners are not performing. Boom, we're going to get rid of them. But they actually are. Further down, and then people interact with your website. They might search again, then they come back to your site again. Then they might open an email but not click on it, yeah? And then at the very end, they do another brand search, and then they convert, okay? Now, one of the first things we have to do when we get these purchase paths, we apply some basic simple rules in the way we distribute credit, okay? So this is here, the $100 that we sold. We're now trying to figure out how to distribute credit for this $100 sale, yeah? And in this example here, we're probably going to give some credit to the branded search, yeah? We might have to redistribute that later, but I'll get back to that point. Then probably the email open is going to get a little bit of credit, yeah? In the last click model, you would give $100 to Google the branded search term. But we, in this model, are able to redistribute the credit to the ones where they actually count. Yeah? So the ad impression in the beginning, and so forth. Yeah? So in terms of display optimizing, well, so I went on about that before quite a bit. If you can't look at click-through rate, what can you look at? It's kind of like what you should be looking at for display advertising is how many times does my display ad or my particular creative actually participate in a sale? How successful are my display ads in participating in closing deals? Not click-through rate or arrival on site, who cares? Okay. But so meaning here, one of the couple of things to take away is like you need all this data into your purchase path. Paid advertising, organic advertising. You might even want to include key website events because your website is another media channel, isn't it? You have to pay for it. You don't buy it, but you still have to pay people to put up the content, to build the site. And so maybe you even want to start allocating credit back to key website events or key website content pieces, like tools that you build, calculators, and big comparison things like investment, okay? Wherever your media investment or content investment sits, maybe you want to give credit back to that as well. Yeah? Your website could be another media channel. So you want to have all paid and organic things in here, including websites. You definitely need a timestamp because without the timestamp, if I don't know that these ads happen within 10 minutes, then there's no way for me to make a correlation. Yeah? I need a timestamp. That's the big thing for me here to figure out whether these things are related. Yeah? And we do this as a user level. You can't do it at an aggregate level. You do this for every single path, individual paths for individual users. Okay? If those kind of data points are missing in your data, then you can't do media attribution. So last slide that you see with raw data, I promise. But it's important to understand the background behind that so you can ask the right questions. Another important thing to understand is partial purchase path data. If you are lacking part of the data, so in this example here, you might get the last 2 ad impressions, the last 5, the last 10, whatever it is. If it's not all of them, yeah, if you're lacking part of your purchase path, then you might have a variance of anywhere between 5 to 65% when you actually look at conversions. And I don't know, a variance of 5 to 65% is probably not really acceptable in any book, okay? So this is something that we got back from a client project that we ran. And in that case, you can see how important it is to truly have every single part of the purchase path. If you don't have everything, every single data point, then you're probably starting off already on the wrong foot, okay? So having everything is very important. Now, another idea here, how to actually include offline sales in this, how to track offline sales back to online events. And this is something that has provided some very interesting results in the past. Essentially, this is one of the mechanics. There's others, okay? But this is a very simple one, very, very simple, that can probably be implemented for a lot of you guys. Now, basically what happens is, if there's an advertising campaign, you click through, you end up on the website, you get a cookie. And because you have the same cookie, you can tie these two things together. Yeah? This advertising event led to that website visit because you have the same cookie. Basic stuff. Okay? If you buy online, you finally hit that online order confirmation page. Okay? And that's the only way we can tell that you actually bought something. Yeah? I can't tell you actually bought something. I can only tell because you visited that page. Yeah? And because you have the same cookie, I can tie that back. I can say the person who hit that order confirmation page must have come from that advertising campaign because they have the same cookie. Now, guess what? The people that buy over the phone or in your retail chain, they also respond to advertising campaigns online. They also do website research, and all of them have cookies, okay? But what they can't do is they can't hit that order confirmation page because they simply don't buy online. That's the only thing that they don't have. They can't hit that page because it's physically impossible, okay? Luckily, though, most of these guys end up in the same kind of credit check fulfillment process in the end, okay? So what you can do is you can, for the first login after the sale or the first email that goes out after the sale, yeah, if people click on that, if they log in, you can actually trigger a virtual order confirmation page in the back. You know, they see exactly what you want them to see, the discount page, the login page, whatever. But in the background, I can tell that this person has bought something, and I can, because they have a cookie, tie all these things together and create a second event, you know, online sales and assisted offline sales, okay? And we implemented this project here for big telco in Australia, and the results were very, very interesting, stunning. Like a multitude of offline sales were influenced. Like the amount of revenue that online was actually generating, looking at the influenced offline revenue as well, was a massive difference. Yeah? Ultimately led to the digital investment getting off much better. Yeah? Now, this is how you can potentially track offline sales back to online activity. Yeah? There's one example, there's other ideas. Here's an idea of how you can track offline advertising back to its activity online. Okay, as a search call to action. It's a very simple idea. So on this chart here, now who can remember the phone number? I do this exercise every time. It's quite nice. Anybody? What was it? Yeah, there you go. Nobody can remember that phone number. What was the search term? There you go. You all remember that. The thing is that our brains are not geared towards remembering numbers. We're about remembering terms, words. That's how we operate, okay? Nobody can ever remember that stuff. Now, if you have some cryptic phone number or some long cryptic vanity URL, like vodafone.com/offer123, whatever, do you really think that people care about your advertising long enough so that they rip that thing out of the newspaper, take it home with them, and put it in their pocket? They don't care. They really don't care at all about your advertising whatsoever, right? That's why you shove it in their face. They don't search it out, right? You shove it in their face because they really don't care. Meaning they really don't care about your call to action. So if you make it hard for them artificially to respond to your advertising, I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah? And so let's make it a bit easier. Search call to action is great in a couple of different ways. A, people remember it much better, like I demonstrated you now. And you probably looked at that thing way longer than somebody looks on your ad on average. You know, they kind of flip through papers like that, right? So they can remember that search term. They can remember the call to action, meaning they can actually respond in the first place. Yay. And then because this ad, Vodafone Now, that search term is unique, meaning I only put it in print. I only advertise that call to action in print. I can then say, if people come to my site, sorry, when did I go back? Did I talk for about 10 minutes without the right slide there? Somebody could have said something. I feel like an idiot now. By using a unique term just for one particular channel, you can then tie these response spikes back to print. Because if people come to your site from the term Vodafone Now, there's a high likelihood that they must have seen the print ad, okay? So you might not have an unlimited amount of unique search terms, but if you use them sparingly and you prepare a little bit, then you can potentially pick apart responses from TV versus print versus radio. You might have to turn these search terms off because obviously if you advertise them all the time, then they create a bit of a life of their own. So maybe you have to turn them off for 3 months and turn them on again. But very, very useful and very easy way of tracking offline advertising online. Okay. Now, search is a nice tracking mechanism, but it's also a problem. Yeah. Now, in this example here, I've recently done a course for Bank West in Perth. It takes forever to fly out there. And we sort of looked at this and say, well, people coming from the search term Bank West, yeah, how do you give credit to Google for this? Where do you give credit? What do you do with this? Yeah, this is probably one reflection of brand equity. Brand equity created elsewhere. Yeah, brand equity created over the last 10 years because Bank West's been around, at least in Perth. Yeah. Or brand equity created in TV or print, in other channels. It's a reflection, it's a response mechanism. So people only just type in the branded term. Yeah? Now we probably need to figure out where that came from, because otherwise it's just roped into branded search and we have this channel branded search that doesn't tell us anything. It's not really, we can't give credit to that. We need to give credit where credit is due, and we can't do that because this is probably originating elsewhere. So what we can do, for example, is you can start a little entry survey. Yeah? One way of doing this. Why don't you show not everybody that comes to the site, only people who come to the site from a branded search term. And only a small minority of these people, a small sample, gets that survey, say 2%, okay? Only these people see that survey, yeah? But you show it to them throughout the entire year. It's a continuous data point. You run this survey continuously throughout the entire year. And you get another data point. If you ask them, why did you come to my site today? Yeah? So this is very different from asking at the end of the shopping cart, why did you buy today? After people went through your 15-minute convoluted checkout process and they're finally done handing over their money, you ask them why did they buy and where did they come from today? They just go like, first option, thanks, I'm out of here. Yeah? That's useless. This is actually quite interesting data because it happens right then and there. You ask them right then and there when they come to your site. Yeah? You might even want to ask them about purchase intent as well. Maybe just another question, a second question about purchase intent to get that additional data point, yeah, if you have a very research-intensive product. And funnily enough, what do you think is the most popular channel driving people to type in brand search terms? Sorry? No. 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 Come on, one more. No. No. No, awesome. That's a good one. No, it's retail. It's people walking into your branch. People walking past the branch or walking in store is very often the highest reason or the biggest driver of those branded direct website visits. Yeah? Have you ever treated your branch as a media channel? Everybody puts up these posters in their front, you know what I mean, in case the store is closed. People do that. They walk past. They remember that. It's your store, your retail chain is a media channel. Yeah? Maybe you're going to have to put an ROI on that as well. I don't know how you're going to do that, but it's an interesting one. We see that very often like that. Now, and finally, only finally, after you exhausted all these methods, yeah, of collecting actual data, only then at the end, you can use the traditional econometric modeling to kind of fill the gaps. Yeah? Regression analysis, figuring out how the different spikes and troughs align. That's what you can do at the end to fill the gaps. I've given you plenty of examples of how you can actually collect data, real data, on an individual user level. Yeah? Lots of data points. Regression module, econometric modeling only should happen at the end to close the gaps where you can't tell where somebody came from. First, you start with a purchase path recording, then you use calls to action in a creative way to determine where people came from, and only at the end you use econometric modeling. And that makes us different from the rest. A lot of people start with that because it's easier. We start the other way around. We only use that to fill the gaps. Okay? Now let's look a little bit about actual attribution models and how they compare. This is a really interesting slide. I love this one. Obviously, I'm a data geek, so I get excited about green dots and orange dots. Now, so what this slide shows, and I only want you to focus on the different colors and the different shapes. I only want you to focus on green and orange. Orange is display advertising. Green is paid search. Yeah, the round dots is the proper way of attributing. It's an even weighted attribution model. The boxes is the last click. Okay, so if you can see here, display advertising. Nobody ever clicks on it. That means it doesn't get a lot of conversion credit in a last click model. It doesn't claim a lot of credit for a lot of conversions. That means the average cost per conversion is high, okay? But in a properly attributed weighted attribution model, display can claim a lot more credit for conversions, yeah, more conversions attributed to display, meaning the average cost per conversion drops, yeah, moves to the left. Now, that's pretty expected, but what is unexpected is to see display advertising drop to the level of paid search. In this example, display advertising is almost as effective as paid search, and that surely was a massive surprise for that particular advertiser. They were about to switch display advertising off. They said, it's not working for us. And you know what? It's actually working really, really well. And for a lot of advertisers in the room, and of your clients probably, display is probably the only channel where they can actually still grow, because there's not that many, there's not unlimited search terms out there. You know, at some point you sort of hit that level where you can't put any more money into search, or it's counterproductive because you pay too much per click, right? So display is probably one of the only channels that you can get into to still keep growing, yeah. But if you don't have media attribution in place that also measures the pure exposure, then you can't, because you don't never going to know what actually happens, what comes out of it, yeah? How well it performs. And ideally, in the end, we want to put every single channel on this map. Yeah? We want to see where print is, where email is, your internal, maybe your website content, the CRM, everything should be on this map. And then you can start making actionable decisions. Okay? Now, in terms of media attribution models, I think we already sort of killed the last click. Yeah? So 100% of the last touch, definitely not going to fly. But one important thing to understand, and this is getting a bit into the nitty-gritty, but similar to the raw data, you have to understand that, because otherwise you don't really understand the mechanics of it, and you can't interpret what's actually coming out of it. Is the same even attribution across every single channel just doesn't work. It's not fair, is it? In this example here, would you give the same credit to a mere exposure or an actual response, a click? Probably not, right? Just an exposure is not worth as much as somebody actually clicking on your ad. They're showing a lot more intent. Yeah? So you need to create a custom weighted attribution model. I'm sorry, it's a little bit more complex, yes, and it takes more time, but it's just plain simple makes sense. You can't give every single channel the same credit. Because guess what? Ads are being served billions of times, and search clicks are only a few thousand, right? So there you already see the inherent qualities of the channel. You have to create a custom attribution model to give credit where credit is due. And if you just use an even one or whatever out of the box comes with you, you're likely going to make a lot of mistakes and wrong decisions. Okay? Now, you probably also want to create different attribution models for different scenarios, yeah? As we talked about before. And we can break this, down by products, by segments, and you're probably going to get very different results. Yeah? And we can also obviously break it down all the way to different publishers, different creative even. Okay, so in this example here, this is one potential output of an analysis. You can see, you just look at ROI. Okay, so sorry, I'm using ROI myself after banging on about it, right? But sometimes you just can't calculate Romy, so you have to take ROI. Even we have to go back to that. So in this instance here, you can see the size of the bubble is the actual spend for that particular publisher. Yeah. At the bottom, you can see the full purchase ROI. And on the left-hand side, you can actually see the total conversion value. And you just split it up by, what's lying left of 0 ROI and what's lying right of 0 ROI. So who's delivering ROI here and who isn't? And in this example here, in the top right-hand corner, the publishers that sit in the green box, it's okay, it's great. Leave them as they are. Perfect. Big spend, delivering ROI, leave it. The ones at the bottom in the light green, they're also positive ROI, but they have small spend. So maybe you want to put more money into those because you could probably get more ROI. Yeah. Left-hand side, all these publishers with big bubbles there that you put a lot of money into it, delivering actually no ROI. So maybe you want to take that money, move it from that bottom left into the bottom right. Yeah? Simple, actionable outcomes. And you can also trial. This is what I meant with testing earlier. You can look at that before and after the campaign. Try something else. Try a homepage takeover on 9MSN and see what actually happens. Media attribution is not just about measuring what happened during your campaign. It's also about enabling testing, giving you the basics so that you can actually say, I'm going to test that, and so at the end you can tell whether it actually worked or not. Okay. And I'm also very a bit of self-advertising here at the end. I'm also very proud to announce that we started adding and developing our own product in this area. We call it the Optima Hub. The name might still change. We're not that set on it yet. But essentially what we're doing is we're recording data for you and analyzing it and building reports on it in a Splunk environment. There's a big data tool that we're using. It sits on your servers. You own the data. We just help you build these models, and you can then take it away, take it into house, and actually start working with it yourself. So if you want to find out a little bit more than happy to answer any questions. And thank you very much for your time.